Vegeta finally uses Ultra Instinct in the new saga of Dragon Ball Super. Vegeta, the Prince of the Saiyans, is one of the most complex and captivating characters in Dragon Ball, and part of this fascination comes precisely from the way he contrasts with his eternal rival Goku. When the concept of Ultra Instinct was introduced during the Tournament of Power, many fans wondered if Vegeta would one day achieve this same godlike state. But as time went by, it became clear that this technique was never truly compatible with his essence. Vegeta never had an affinity for Ultra Instinct, not for lack of power or ability, but because his personality is completely at odds with the foundations that support this fighting style. Ultra Instinct is a state that requires detachment. The user must empty his mind, trust completely in instinct, and allow his body to react on its own to attacks. It is an absolute mastery of inner calm, of complete serenity, even in the midst of the chaos of battle. For Goku, whose nature is free, relaxed, and curious, this approach not only makes sense, it fits perfectly. But for Vegeta, this is almost an existential contradiction. Since his first appearance, Vegeta has been shaped by pride, discipline, and absolute control over every detail of himself. He trains to the limit, perfecting techniques through conscious effort, technical refinement, and methodical self-improvement. Relying on instinct, improvisation, or abandoning his ego is an almost offensive concept to him. Ultra Instinct, by demanding the emptying of the self, goes against everything Vegeta represents: identity, pride, and iron will. Vegeta is someone who has never liked the idea of fighting without emotion. His fury, his intensity, and even his pride drive him in combat. He transforms his anger into power, his pain into evolution. Abandoning these emotions would be abandoning part of who he is, and that is not something Vegeta is willing to do. That is why even when he trained with Whis and had access to the same instructions as Goku, Ultra Instinct never manifested itself in a genuine way in him. His spirit is simply not aligned with this philosophy. More than that, Vegeta has always rejected any path that would make him just a shadow of Goku. And it's important to remember that deep down, he's also searching for his own identity as a warrior. When he realized that Ultra Instinct was Goku's path, he made it clear that he wanted to follow a different path. His pride as a prince prevents him from simply imitating his rival. He needs to find a power that reflects his own principles, his convictions, and his journey. That's why Ultra Ego, introduced during the Granola saga, makes so much more sense for Vegeta. While Ultra Instinct preaches evasion, serenity, and detachment, Ultra Ego is the opposite. It embraces direct confrontation, pain, and destruction. It grows stronger the more the user throws himself into battle without fear of getting hurt. Ultra Ego is brutal, relentless, and rooted in the total acceptance of one's own pride and savagery, a natural extension of Vegeta's soul. This contrast between Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego is actually a symbolic manifestation of who Goku and Vegeta are. Goku seeks balance, freedom, and spiritual evolution. Vegeta seeks self-improvement through conflict, intensity, and determination. It's poetic that each of their ultimate powers accurately reflects the essence of their personalities, rather than simply following the same path as generic rivals. While some fans would like to see Vegeta use Ultra Instinct just for the spectacle, it would be inconsistent with everything the character has built over the decades. He could indeed technically master the state, but he would never use it in its full form, because that would mean giving up his natural warrior instincts. Vegeta is not someone who goes with the flow. He imposes his strength, his focus, and his will on reality. And that's what makes him so powerful and so different from Goku. It is also important to note that Vegeta has had opportunities to experience Ultra Instinct. In brief moments, such as when training with Whis or when analyzing Goku's fighting style, he has had a sense of what the state demands. And yet, he has consciously chosen not to follow it. His refusal is not a limitation, but rather a declaration. He does not need someone else's path to achieve greatness. This positioning is also an evolution of his own trajectory. The Vegeta of the beginning of Dragon Ball Z might have tried to replicate Ultra Instinct out of envy or obsession with Goku, but the current Vegeta has already found his own value, his own reason to fight. He no longer wants to simply surpass Kakarot, but to continually surpass himself as an individual. And to do so, he needs a power that speaks to his soul, not to someone else's. In short, Ultra Instinct was never Vegeta's destiny because his essence does not allow it. It is control, it is decision, it is pride in its raw form. It would be a betrayal of his identity to see Vegeta fighting like Goku, with smooth movements and empty thoughts. The power that truly represents Vegeta is the one that lets him scream, suffer, and smile with clenched teeth in the midst of destruction. Ultra Ego may seem more unstable, more brutal, but it is honest, and Vegeta has always been, above all, honest with who he is. Ultimately, this dichotomy between instinct and ego represents the beauty of Dragon Ball's duality. Instead of two warriors running side by side on the same path, we have two parallel paths, each with its own value, weight, and glory. And Vegeta's path, marked by pride, suffering, and redemption, is as necessary as Goku's because strength, after all, can have many forms, and none of them should contradict one's own soul. So, what changed? What made a path that was previously impossible for Vegeta now become a concrete possibility? The answer lies in the new level that Goku has reached, true Ultra Instinct, a state that completely revolutionizes everything we knew until then about this divine technique. This new form breaks the paradigm that prevented Vegeta from aligning with this power, and ironically, it is Goku himself who opens this door by reconfiguring what instinct really means. When Goku freed himself from the bonds of emotional neutrality in the use of Ultra Instinct, he began a new era. The Goku of the Tournament of Power needed to suppress his emotions to maintain the perfect state. He was a cold, almost robotic form that conflicted with everything Vegeta represents. But true Ultra Instinct changes that. Now, Goku is able to channel his deepest emotions, his anger, his love, his pain, and still maintain total control of his body and mind. This is not just an evolution of technique, it is a philosophical evolution. With this, Ultra Instinct ceases to be a neutral state and becomes a form that respects the individuality of the warrior. And this is the key that Vegeta has always been missing. What kept him from Ultra Instinct was not technical inability, but rather the need to nullify what made him who he is. Now this barrier disappears. The new paradigm shows that it is possible to achieve calm through intensity, that it is possible to master the body without silencing the heart. If Goku can access Ultra Instinct in its purest form through his emotions, then there is no longer any conceptual impediment to Vegeta achieving it in his own way. True Ultra Instinct proves that the state is no longer a philosophical prison, but a fertile ground where each warrior can flourish according to his own essence. And in this newly plowed soil, Vegeta begins to glimpse new possibilities. What he once saw as a denial of himself can now become a tool for personal expansion. Vegeta would not need to give up his pride, his intensity, or his anger to tap into Ultra Instinct. Instead, he could use these emotions as catalysts, as fuel to fuel a unique version of the state. Just as Goku adapted the power to his feelings of compassion and protection, Vegeta could shape it through his noble rage and unwavering desire to surpass his own limits. It is important to remember that Vegeta has always had the technical ability. He trained with Whis, understood the mechanics of instinctive self-awareness, and understood the fundamentals of the state. But now he has the most important thing, a path compatible with his soul. Ultra Instinct no longer needs to be a path alien to his journey, but rather a new road parallel to Ultra Ego, or perhaps even complementary. One imagines a Vegeta who masters both philosophies, Ultra Ego in its destructive form, focused on total offense, and true Ultra Instinct as a shield, as absolute control even in the midst of a storm, a warrior who can alternate between furious abandon and instinctive mastery as the situation demands. At this point, Vegeta not only approaches Goku, he overcomes a barrier that held him back by pride and identity and transforms the impossible into his own truth. Even Beerus, who in the past stated that Ultra Instinct was only for angels, can no longer make such a statement with conviction. What Goku did was rewrite the divine rules, and if Goku can do it, so can Vegeta. Because what the prince always lacked was not power, but the permission to be himself within a system that previously required denial. The acceptance of emotions within Ultra Instinct opens doors not only for Vegeta, but for all warriors in the multiverse who previously felt excluded because they could not silence their souls. Now the focus is on inner balance, not emptiness, and who better than Vegeta to find strength amidst the constant internal conflict, in the duality between his anger and his reason, between his cruel past and his present as a hero. And it is possible that this is the next natural step for Vegeta, not as an imitation of Goku, but as a wild, violent, perfect adaptation in his own way. A proud combat instinct, which allows Vegeta's body to react even while his mind burns with fury, a state where every move is sure, not out of serenity but out of conviction. When this happens, when Vegeta finally crosses this boundary with the intensity of someone who never bows down, we will have before us the true evolution of the Saiyan warrior. It will not be Ultra Ego, nor classic Ultra Instinct. It will be something new, something born from the collision of philosophies that once seemed opposed but now prove to be complementary. A Vegeta who channels instinct, ego, and emotion in perfect harmony. Vegeta's future lies not in rejecting Ultra Instinct, but in redefining it just as Goku did, but this time in his own way. The Prince of the Saiyans will not become a reflection of Goku. On the contrary, he will reflect a new image in the divine mirror, that of a warrior who did not need to give up his fury to find peace in movement. And this perhaps is the greatest sign that Vegeta is finally ready to transcend. This new path may not only be a spiritual or technical evolution for Vegeta, it may finally be the means to achieve his revenge against Frieza. Throughout his life, Vegeta has carried the weight of the destruction of his people, the murder of his father, and the manipulation and humiliation he suffered at the hands of the tyrant. Even though he fought Frieza on Namek and later in the Golden Emperor's rebirth, Vegeta was never able to end this cycle definitively. There was always something missing: power, control, or even a state that was compatible with the intensity of his resentment. But with true Ultra Instinct, the scenario changes. If this state is now capable of molding itself to the user's heart, then Vegeta can finally channel all his pain and Saiyan pride into a power that rivals or even surpasses Black Frieza. And unlike Ultra Ego, which is fueled by damage and leads to a suicidal and savage fight, Ultra Instinct, adapted to emotions, would allow Vegeta to fight with maximum efficiency without losing control, remaining cold and lethal even as he burns with fury inside. Frieza, who always underestimated Vegeta, would see the prince rise as an adversary who not only surpassed the Saiyan limits, but also transcended the divine system itself, reinventing the power of the gods in his own image. It would be poetic. The same Vegeta who was forced to kneel before the Emperor, who had his race destroyed and his identity corrupted, would now return as the herald of the new order, fused with a power that even the angels respect but without ever abandoning what makes him unique. This new approach could give Vegeta what he has always sought: revenge with dignity. Not an uncontrolled explosion of rage, but a victory built on his personal evolution. Not because he was stronger than Frieza in terms of raw power alone, but because he surpassed the villain on every level: mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and technically. Prince Saiyan, mastering Ultra Instinct with emotion, would become the ultimate manifestation of what it means to be a true warrior. And perhaps, in that final moment, looking at Frieza defeated, Vegeta would not only feel the satisfaction of revenge, perhaps he would realize that true victory is not in destroying Frieza, but in proving that, even after everything, he managed to maintain his essence and evolve. And that would be the greatest humiliation for the tyrant, to see that he was unable to erase the Saiyan's pride, and that he, Frieza, was left behind by a warrior who transformed his pain into transcendence. This outcome would not only be the culmination of a rivalry, it would be the end of a cycle that began when Vegeta was still a child, forced to serve the murderer of his father and the destroyer of his people. With the mastery of true Ultra Instinct, Vegeta would not only equal Goku in one of the most revered powers in the universe, but he would give that power a new face. The face of justice driven by emotion, of revenge that builds not just destroys. And it would be impossible for Frieza to understand this. The Emperor, who sees emotions as weakness, would not understand how Vegeta managed to grow precisely through the pain he himself caused. True Ultra Instinct, embodied by a warrior like Vegeta, is everything Frieza hates. Strength born of empathy, channeled anger, and love for his dead people. Vegeta would become the antithesis of Frieza's empire, a threat not only physical but symbolic. In the end, this could be the definitive redemption of the Prince of the Saiyans, not by setting aside his anger, but by using it as a guide, as a flame that lights the way. True Ultra Instinct would be more than a technique. It would be the instrument to restore the honor of his blood, to show the universe that the Saiyans were not erased, they have evolved. And at the center of this evolution will be Vegeta, not as Goku's shadow, but as the hero who freed himself from the past without forgetting where he came from. Thus, Vegeta would no longer need to fight against the current of his own nature to achieve divine power. On the contrary, he would use it as a driving force. And when the moment comes, before Frieza, it will not be just a battle between two titans, but the climax of a journey marked by pain, pride, overcoming, and rebirth. Vegeta will finally stop being just the prince of an extinct people, and will become the warrior who gave new meaning to the Saiyan legacy. But comment on what you thought of all this and don't forget to like. Thank you very much for all your support and see you next time.